Hey guys, Senza here, your favorite solo male entertainer, and I'd like to welcome you all to Dying Light, a vibrant, breathing, and living world where we aren't forced into atrocities like paying taxes or getting a job. If you have played this game before, you should know that danger lies behind every corner, from military trained soldiers with aimbot to roided out thick boys that only have one goal in mind: to turn our assholes into rat roach meat. This run was a mistake, specifically 636 mistakes, but seeing as the news of Dying Light's release has given 86% of the human population an erection harder than Wolverine's adamantium, I thought why not play through a classic and answer a question no one has ever asked. Can you beat Dying Light 2 without taking damage? Sit back, grab a Sonic the Hedgehog popsicle from your local ice cream van, and slap a SpongeBob band-aid on your nearest boo-boo, as Techland is going to be holding my in a medieval torture device, and you little tumors are coming along for the ride. With the news of tragedy in Haran, it was time for Crane to make his way to the hottest vacation spot of 2021. Humbly here to slap his genitals up and down on a few foreheads in the name of government relations, he was ready for anything. Unfortunately, our man had a high charisma, low intelligence build, and this became apparent when he fired a gun in a zombie apocalypse. Along with the Pretty Darwin Award, he also received a very generous and hearty serving of 1 year's worth of a virus caused by lack of affordable healthcare. Many would call this story over, but it wasn't Crane's time to thank the Academy just yet. Jade, a local resident, somehow saved Crane from his feat of autism, and this is where our story begins. Guided by Boss Man here, I was sent to the 13th floor to locate a survivor in peril, but not before I threw on some well-needed drip. No damage runs are grade A, cage-free, USDA approved bullshit, so I was going to need a conqueror, and this right here was the closest thing that I could get to it. On episode 2 of Specimen of the Chadley Type, sponsored by Ridge Wallet by the way, we are going to be rocking a fit straight from the 1162 Mongolian Plateau. Critically acclaimed on r/male fashion advice, this fall look will not only bring us the resilience needed in the face of peril, but also metaphorically adds negative 10 points to my enemy's living privileges. I call him Genghis Crane, aka the Milkman. Normally, I have quite controversial opinions, like pineapple belonging on pizza, or me having a good upload schedule, but this fit right here, this was optimal skull f***ing attire. Crane was now ready for anything. Attention all gaming athletes, is your collection of Disney mommies secure within your wallet and your credit cards? Do they have RFID protection against the sussy troglodytes of this world? Well, fortunately, I have come bearing a great gift. A gift that will not only grant you access to things you have always wanted, but also bring you social success. Literally, your friends will be shedding tears in the presence of this single product. The Ridge Wallet is a wallet that does great many wallet things, like holding up to 12 cards, being light, sleek, and goddamn sexy in design, and protecting you from those naughty hacker anime finishing moves. If you head on over to ridge.com/diaperbooty, you will be shown a great selection of wallets. To top this off, if you use the code diaperbooty, you can even get 10% off. I genuinely enjoy this product, and to back me up, go ahead and check out the 5-star reviews. If you don't even like the wallet, there's a no questions asked money back guarantee. Stop being the personification of a 9gag post and grab a wallet, whether if it's for yourself or someone special these upcoming holidays. Again, make sure to use code DiaperBooty at checkout, and thank you to Ridge once again for sponsoring this video. Sellout Senza's done, ad over. Mark informed me that the being that I just took to Suplex City was in fact his brother, and after ordering him a medkit with an extra large side of emotional support, I returned to Bossman Rahim to figure out how I could get out there and solve this whole zombie apocalypse thing. Before I could start taking L's out there in the world of Dying Light, I first had to learn the rules and safety regulations of parkour. Unlike that medkit tutorial, which is literally about as useful to me this run as a bicycle is to a parkour is one of the main mechanics that will keep us alive. Zombies and their rather dense brains are incapable of keeping up with Crane when verticality is involved. Most of them, in fact, will give up a chase or become vulnerable, making this domestic abuse simulator a tad bit easier. With tutorial complete and dining table leg now in my possession, I was ready to weaponize my autism for the greater good of Haran. I'm proud to inform you all that it took not even 5 minutes out in the open world to achieve my first reset. It wasn't a zombie that bested me, the culprit was actually a fire hazard that, may I say, broke multiple regulations. I'm sorry to disappoint. You and my parents now have something in common. If you so happen to attempt a no damage run on this game, my only recommendation is to give yourself a brain with the rusty spoon. After diving through the settings, it became apparent that there was no reset checkpoint option, which if you whip out your TI-84 calculators and do the math, this all calculates to me wasting gallons of hours trying to figure out how to f myself and reload the most recent checkpoint. This doesn't seem like too much of a problem, but f you. It is, especially when I have to enjoy a new flavor of death 636 times. This early into the game, the zombies are an absolute pushover. So much of a pushover that they make rusty wrenches look like they slap harder than Vasily Kamatsky himself, which honestly, they absolutely do in this game. It's fucking awesome. The survivor in question didn't do a very good job at surviving, and after turning on the power to the substation, I was able to contact the GRE, aka Organization 13, for another mission debrief. I was told to remain the imposter and that our main goal was to grab any and all info on the infection and its cure. Will the GRE eventually become one of the biggest assholes in this anime later on? Good question. Too bad we don't tolerate those here. My objective of setting up light traps was a success, but not before getting used like a fleshlight. I, the globally renowned spank doctor, walked myself straight into that distribution center with a plan. Focused, my brain released a special form of chakra. My metaphorical Sharingan was centered in, blasting cheeks without dropping a sweat. Things felt great until I got down by Sergeant Cock over there. And yeah, that killed my vibe almost immediately. After about 3 resets or so, I decided to avoid being spread out and just slipped past him. In the eyes of God, I was sinning. I know, but out here in Haran, anything... Baby's first zombie night lights were on. I broke my ankles trying to find a place to crash for the night, and come morning, I made my way back to Spike to let him know that the deed was done. This was where I had the pleasure to meet the head of honcho, Brecken. The Avengers here had their antizin stolen, and their dicks beaten off by the infamous Rise. Rise is a name that will come up often this run. He was a man that was clearly fed septic water to him as a baby instead of milk, because not only was he full of shit, he was also a massive piece of shit. Antizin is important in this universe because it is a drug that postpones the infection, and in normal video game fashion, my assistance was offered without my consent. Brecken let me know that he didn't trust me and has produced farts far more talented than I ever will be, and I made my way back out into Haran to try and not let another antizin drop fall into the hands of Sensei Vasectomy over here. Airdrop numero uno was gone long before I could get there, and airdrop 2 was in the process of being taken. Jade specifically told me not to fight them, and boy, I should have listened. Human AI have no problems busting your pussy wide open and educating you on the subject of death. Fighting them is a cruel and unusual punishment you didn't know you needed to be punished for, and the fact that they could dodge every one of your melee attacks calls into question the legality of their AI. Finally, an antizin drop was located, but the GRE decided I should blue ball our teammates, hopefully scoring an audience with Rise. While trying to get out of here, this was where we were introduced to volatiles. I enjoyed exclusive volatile only action and proceeded to Team Rockets blasting my way off again out of that bitch. Just as the GRE expected, Brecken sent me, the paragon of virtue, to commune with Rise and try and find more of that good juice. Now there's going to be a lot of things going down off screen between the main story bits of this game. I implore you gamers to actually try this game out yourself because it's truly an experience. A lot of it is just exploring and looting, but goddamn is it addicting. Trust me though, you aren't missing out on much besides the occasional reset and me bashing in a few heads with whatever object that I could weaponize. After taking a massive detour on my way to meet Rise, I finally made it to his garrison. It is clear that this man is always angry. Why is he always angry? Because he suffers from severe erectile dysfunction and infertility. Is this canon? No, probably not. I mean maybe. Stop asking questions. My sources are credible. John Mungus over here learned hands-on what happens when you cross Rise, and I was told antizin would be given to me if I tickled his side quest fancy. Our first task involved the collaboration of my 2 favorite things, vomit and a good time. A diet version of the spitter from Left 4 Dead joined the fight, and I inconvenienced myself with 8 resets. Instead of using the tools I had at my disposal, I was out here playing like a Neanderthal, trying to ration out my gadgets and throwables for later use like this was World War II. If you decide decide to dangerously lower your sanity by completing this challenge, or just lack the cognitive function to think on your own, then rejoice gamers and keep watching, because I put together a little presentation to help you get through this run. Operation My Teacher Failed Me for Plagiarism but Miscredits Her Husband for Her Own Kid is now a go. Improvising in a run like this is going to do more damage to my mental health than video games has done to my social life, so we're going to have to focus up and really grab this baby by the horns. Dying Light has throwables, and those things are damn good. Whether that's a Molotov to Baja Blast a few of your enemies, or a measly firecracker to distract a horde. Many of you may be thinking that gamers who rely on these have average-sized weenies, and that is a fact. But listen men, we have no choice. We must stay as far as we possibly can from our enemies, seeing as this is a no damage run. As an added bonus to this sort of playstyle, Techland specifically engineered the Molotov and explosives in this game to deliver dopamine directly to the brain. So do we walk the path of enlightenment and become one with Throwables to topple this daunting task? Or do we suffer a golf ball sized tumor, named taking damage while trying to use a melee weapon? I think you already know the answer, so let's get to learning. Our first step is to loot as much as possible. A good 90% of this will be done off screen. Furthermore, we must prepare for the future. I will constantly be crafting this entire run, so if you see me go from 0 throwables to 24 out of nowhere, don't be surprised. I haven't run through this game in a fatty minute, and a majority of the enemies in this game are trained to tactically spread your asshole, so we will be using everything and anything in our arsenal. It's just that throwables deserve an honorable mention. Now that we're all on the same page, I love you. Make sure to buckle in your seatbelt next time you're in a vehicle, and possibly check out my Patreon, where I'll be posting monthly POV no commentary sandwich making videos. Anyway, let's get back to the run. Our first obstacle was tackled with a good old firecracker and the classic reach around. Firecrackers in this game last about as long as geriatric bowel movements do, so you have an ample amount of time to get your shit done. Optional pun intended. The rest of this side quest was a breeze, and before you knew it, I pranced my cute ass right back to Rise's Spicy Doritos Evil Man dungeon. Verbally, I was kicked in the scrotum, and he told me that he would give me antizin when he thought I deserved it. What does that mean exactly? Well, you should know what that means, and if you don't, you have problems that I can't help you with. The second part of this Senza side quest arc had us on the right side of the playground, and it was time to threaten a few chumps for Rise's lunch money. I can say with a high level of confidence that this wasn't running too bad. A couple of zombies met my Molotov named Mixtape, and I got cucked a few times the way God intended. During my crusade, I did learn that Techland was a group of absolute homies. Any enemies killed while you're alive don't respawn if you end up dying, making clearing certain sections a lot easier than it should be. Once lunch money was in hand, I started making my way back to Rise and his men, but of course everything has to be a phantom pain in the dick here on the Senza YouTube channel. One of Rise's patrols seemed to be in the same line of work that porn stars are in, and went off grid. This shouldn't have been my problem, but for some reason, it was. The asses of the men in question were no longer intact, thanks to a random gunman, and it was time to decide the fate of mine. Going in sneaky beaky like wasn't possible, as this AI had aimbot. AI with impeccable aim, coupled by the fact that I am doing a no damage run, is enough to ensure psychological damage. A few resets and attempts at getting to this guy later, I popped myself on a ridge within full view of my prey and threw a Molotov that I was sure to land. We made our way back to Rise HQ with payments in hand, and do you want to know what the scouter said about my boner levels? All 2 inches limper than cooked spaghetti. This insufferable shit really played me once again, giving me only 1/4 of the antizin he promised. Brecken decided to break a television rights violation by showing this poor television an illegal WWE move, and with this L being passed around to the group like a goddamn sexual disease, it was up to me to figure something out. So what in the 7 circles of the BME Pain Olympics were we to do about this problem? Well, I'll tell you, it was time to get a little freaky and wild. The local grade schools here in Haran suffered the same fate as the ones in Chicago. They were filled with drugs and crime. This is probably a terrible analogy, but this school here did have overlooks, and we needed them badly. Judging by what Rise's right-hand man Tahir did to Johnny Dying Light over there, this was going to be a toughie, but before I could suffer that sweet dehumanization, I first had to get inside without getting hit. 6 tries later, I was left numb, but I finally made it inside the school. I'll be blunt with you guys, Tahir's men took me to class. Saying that they f***ed my face and made a daycare out of my throat would be an understatement. AI is terrifying. I mean, Hollywood should have told you this already, but the AI developed by Techland are on a whole different level. Like seriously, these guys are almost impossible to kill without projectiles. In this day and age, I'm pretty sure it's not possible for a human to go Ultra Instinct, but Techland has definitely developed AI that can. Fortunately though, we have 3 things that they don't: confidence, clinical depression, and Molotovs.
Did I really just... I actually just f***ed myself with my own dick.
I'll save you guys the boner and skip all of the juicy footage here in the school. Most of it was just me eating Molotovs left and right until I succeeded. What I will show you though is that there was no antizin. Instead, Rise and Tahir were stockpiling loads of C4. Worried by the thought of them using this ordinance to expunge us shit stains from history's underwear, Jade took a couple of them back to the crib. With the C4 that we had just accumulated, America's top cuck over here, Raheem, decided to go on a suicide mission and make a tower full of zombies go boom. Healy's locked in. I broke the ankles of many zombies on my way to his location and educated a few zombies on the properties of extreme heat. Anyone who has played this game before would know that the tower section here would pretty much be an IRL speedrun to a bunch of gray hairs. But go ahead and grab your number 2 pencils, gamers, specifically the tiny ones I know we all made during grade school, because it's time you take some additional notes. Melee combat is not an option here, as that is a sport for barbarians. Projectiles could work, but we had yet to come across any. Explosive throwing stars though, these were next level. Not only are they simple to craft, but are virtually available from the beginning of the game, capable of staggering your enemies, and most importantly, one-shotting most volatiles. Splash damage is non-existent, so you don't have to worry about damaging yourself. And Tonka Tough Thick Cheeks over there, go ahead and laugh as you proceed to give him an explosive enema. I was an absolute boogeyman, unlocking my enemies into submission and making this section a whole lot easier. Once I was done ripping straight up ass, I dropped all of the medkits I had accumulated from looting after I realized this was something I should have done a while ago, and made my way back to Raheem. He was not happy with my success, and with a bit of deductive reasoning, I was able to defuse the situation. Sometimes distinguishable actions deserve indistinguishable consequences, like having to murder him, and Brecken once again portraying how diverse and disturbing the human species really is. Clearly, Rise didn't take too kindly to the maltreatment of inanimate objects, because not even 5 minutes after Brecken's outburst, Rise's men were here to make us pay for our crimes. Kidnapping Zara, our only scientist, was the first installment. After getting to the place where Rise was surely keeping Zara, and finding out that I had the mental capacity of someone with late-stage Alzheimer's.
How did I actually forget how to get into this place? I played this game like a month ago.
I stormed Rise's HQ, hacking AI with my patented and trademarked foot job fleshlight and arsenal of weapons. Inside, I asked the GRE to hook a homie up. Their response was nothing short of a kick in the dick. They planned to nuke the entirety of Haran just to get this pandemic over with. This news led me on a rampage and I was a goddamn menace. Speed running this part in nearly 15 minutes felt fucking great, and I'll tell you that I had no problems whatsoever. None at all. Because I would never lie to you guys ever. Zara had been located and it was time for us to evac, but as always, we were genetically engineered to fail. Rise caught us slipping, told his men to find his favorite e-girl Jade so he could finally satisfy his unhealthy parasocial relationship with her, and sent me to a gladiator arena to make out with that hot boy, the Demolisher. The pit was exponentially more painful than it should have been. You are stripped of your weapons and thrown into a 5x5 Minecraft zombie mob spawner arena. Fortunately, you aren't completely screwed, as there are weapons and throwables scattered around. So the goal is to attempt to not have your dick machine gun jackhammered off your pelvis as you gather as much as you can, to succeed in the fight against Senor Testosterone. My ability to not take damage before the Demolisher encounter was nothing short of the pinnacle of human existence. But as for the actual fight, the Demolisher fancied me, and not many could deny his loving embrace. Taking down the actual boss himself wasn't rocket surgery. The difficulty came from the enemies that he threw at me, but this was okay. I needed to embrace the panic of being in battle. We needed to learn, as this will not be the only boss fight this run. On my 14th try, I bested the Demolisher, but the pain was far from over. Crane took away Ryze's ability to ever hold hands with the girl again, and with Zara a goner, I had to find a way to make it out of this bitch. The pit was merely just the beginning, only having to reset 14 times. Escaping it, though, took me 2 hours and 86 resets. Enough to turn any soy boy into a man. Using melee weapons here just wasn't viable, as throwing them is an option, but I would have a higher chance at successfully circumcising a mosquito than hitting an enemy from this distance. On top of all of that, the enemy had permanent Soldier 76 ultimates, which meant my ass belonged to them. Things were looking bleak until our great and merciful Lord Techland delivered me out of my affliction. An enemy that was supposed to have the high ground spawned on the floor. That's when I saw it, the gun in this AI's hand. That would be my salvation. I killed the poor man in the name of my sanity and began blasting my way out, showing them that I was no longer the submissive and breedable man they thought me out to be. With the 3-hour BDSM session now over with, I met up with Brecken, begged him not to break any more inanimate objects, and was filled in on the next plan. I was to head to Sector 0 in hopes of finding a cure for this infection. A few goons smuggled me over the border, and I thought that all was well, but oh boy was I wrong. You are all first-hand witnesses to my gaming prowess. You have seen my Professor Xavier IQ in action, and you should all know that my nuts are very capable of taking a beating. But I regret to inform you that you can't beat Dying Light without taking damage. It wasn't the group of zombies I wiped 22 times on, or the fall damage I took when not using a ladder correctly. It was the bane of my very existence.
Oh, good. Oh, this is great. They have aimbot. They actually
To fill you in on this current arc of the anime, the group of people that were supposed to smuggle me over the border were working for Ryze and set up an ambush. Dropping down the drain here, you are immediately met with a terrorist firing squad, and our only option was to escape through the sewers. Being submerged in water meant that my movement was not only slowed to a geriatric pace, but I couldn't use any weapons or throwables. Now the average gamer would breeze past this part, giggling with glee as these grown men and women tickle them with bullets, but this was a different rodeo, and we couldn't avoid getting hit. I spent 4 hours here rubbing my chin for some extra processing power, trying to figure something out. You can nearly matrix dodge these bullets, but exiting the tunnel always results in taking a small bit of damage. Jumping out of the water to slap a few of them was a potential play, but I couldn't figure out how to get enough air, seeing as you are stuck in an animation the entire time. At this point, there were only 2 options, and they both included shit. Either I cheat by modding the game, which I would rather butt chug a Liston amputation knife than do that, or take damage. With no other options, I embraced the alternative and failed the challenge. Even though we took an L, the masochism must continue, and this is non-negotiable. Now that we were done with the content that made me want to test the integrity of my drywalls, I consumed another 200 milligrams of cringe, and after about an hour, I made it to Sector 0. Our first goal was to find Jade, who so happened to make the same journey as I did, excluding all of the tears and sodomy. It didn't take long before I could get a hold of her, and once I did, whoo boy, did I get ripped a new one. Although she hated Crane, we needed to make sure that we found her, as she had Dr. Zara's research. That research, in collaboration with the tissue samples that I had, was our ticket to an actual cure. Before we could go rampaging out here in the streets of Sector 0 looking for her, we had another problem that needed to be dealt with. The tactical nuke GRE was planning on unloading all over Haran's face. Crane, with his vast intelligence, threw together a plan to let the outside world know that there were survivors still hustling out here in the streets. Hopping up into the guts of a local apartment building and committing arson was surely enough to grab the outside world's attention. But trust me when I say that this was easier said than done. You may find my pain enjoyable. I have even heard that watching this footage here is scientifically proven to boost serotonin levels. But despite my sporadic brain aneurysms both in and out of game.
Wait, what? Oh! Yes! Woo!
Throwables carried me once again through this area. They supply a low nutritional value, but plenty of destruction. So thanks to my complete lack of self-awareness, dangerously gorgeous looks, and the will to save the people of Haran, the charges were set. I once again searched for a sense of euphoria through the means of dying, and committed a crime insurance companies would be shitting in their diapers and crying to their mommies about. Too bad the GRE pretty much told Crane to go f himself, making this whole mission a waste of time. It was time to meet with Jade and figure out how to get Dr. Zara's research in the right hands. Upon arrival, it was clear that Rise decided to add Coward to his personality traits list, right next to Rich, Gym Life, and Sigma Male. Jade had been kidnapped. I could have just ended the video here and salvaged about 38% of my sanity and dignity, but I wasn't going to let Mr. Boy over here get away with this. The museum section of this run was nothing but cock and ball torture, so the only emotion that I felt while getting through this was fear. To give you a sense of this supersized me ass f***ing, I went into this part with 396 documented deaths and left with 528, taking me around 4 hours and 360 gigabytes of recordings. What do these recordings consist of, you may ask? Everything from having to deal with Chris Kyles to zombies with the reach of a professional boxer, and to hear pounding my face in so hard my teeth began to look like they were throwing up gang signs. Tahir's fight was the meat of this section. For its first phase, all you had to do is read the zombies like a picture book and run them in circles as you chucked Molotovs at their feet. As for the second, this is where things got juicy, and I'm not talking Tropicana, baby. Jade was bitten. In that moment, she cast aside all titles and pretense, using the final vial of Anticin to save Crane and ending her own life, foiling what us players thought would be Crane's romance option, and revealing that the romance option all along was Tahir. It was Tahir versus Genghis Crane, both of us brandishing nothing but old machetes. Dishing out a few attacks and then being sure to dodge back was leaps and bounds easier than going in balls to the ceiling fan full testosterone on this guy. The horrific truth was that Throwables were out of the picture, forcing us to adapt and overcome Tahir's only purpose, to send your emotional cortex into a frenzy.
He's still... How is he fucking alive?
Once I thought I got the rhythm of this fight, here Tahir was, flavor blasting me like some goldfish by deciding to expedite this ass fucking, aka throwing in additional AI to deal with. God knows how many resets it took, but your favorite Neanderthal did it. He killed Tahir without taking damage. In a form of post-nut transcendence, I let my neighbors know of my accomplishment and got back to the matter at hand, delaying the inevitable bombing and developing a cure. Finding the nearest radio tower to try and contact the outside world was the only diplomatic solution to this conflict. I couldn't even begin to tell you the ecstasy I felt from being able to relax for the rest of this challenge. With Tahir's machete and firearms in my possession, we were cruising, and nothing could stop me. To some of you, I'm sure I'm committing heresy beyond measure as a gamer, using these legendary and ranged weapons, but you should have already set your expectations low when clicking on a Senza video. Now gamers, trust me when I say that your genitals will not last 10 seconds after watching this next clip. Most of you are aware of 360 trick shots and how they are a traditional method of accelerating the process of getting a girlfriend or finding a well-paying job. But today, I'm proud to show you my own rendition of a 360 trick shot. Right here is live footage of me performing the world's very first 360 YY radio tower jump onto a zip line in Dying Light. Techland, I expect a plaque. Go ahead and contact me at my business email. I'll be sure to respond. Crane's government-approved mouth diarrhea disguised as a speech saved Haran, but now we needed a cure. Once I was done becoming a world-renowned gamer, I made my way to Zara's bestie to finish this run off once and for all. Spider-Manning my way to the research station, I was met with a bit of boner kryptonite. You unfortunately can't kill with the grappling hook, thus ruining any potential challenges with this bad boy. Techland, you gracious human beings, alongside the plaque that I expect to receive, please make this beauty do damage in Dying Light 2. Finally, I got to Dr. Zara's colleague Camden after a load of zombie AI that tried to impress me with their big muscles and overwhelming numbers. I'm not gonna lie, I almost thought we had ourselves a couple of DEF CON situations, but let me tell you that I came prepared for the worst. While Camden tested the sample, he filled me in on his lore. He and most Twitter users seem to have a lot in common, both locking themselves away to avoid real-life social interactions and responsibility. Shortly after, the tests were done and the tissue tissue samples were perfect. All he needed was the research Jade had on her when she was kidnapped by Rise. Crane called that out like this was some sort of 2012 Xbox Live lobby and let him know that it was his God-given right to beat him in a 1v1 snipers only on Rust. Rise wanted this tussle done on his turf, and Crane for some reason obliged. Agreeing to those terms is almost as bad an idea as it is willingly putting carpet in your bathtub. But Crane doesn't use his brain. We figured that one out at the beginning of the video. The finale of the run was pretty easy. A quick flash of my UV light had these special infected stun locked, allowing me to just run past them. At the top of Rise's tower, we confronted the scum dealt with quick time events for the first time this run. Rise was dead, and with the research files in hand, the cure was soon to be in our possession. Comment down below if you think I beat Dying Light without taking damage. I personally take this run as a loss, seeing as the damage taken wasn't in a cutscene, but oh well. Gently like that smack button if you enjoyed this crusade, and spoiler alert, Genghis Crane's journey will continue in the next episode. I am truly sorry on the wait for this installment. I really needed some time to myself and a break from content creation. Mentally, I wasn't in a great spot, but thanks to some family time, I'm happy to say that I'm excited to start slapping and clapping again. For those of you lovely fucks that have stuck around, you are more than perfect, and I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you to the Diaper Booty Chairman over on YouTube and Patreon for funding this video, and remember, I love you little turds. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to make these for you. Happy holidays, and catch you all in the next video.